What's up, Build Show friends? We've got another Build Show live for you, coming to you from our Rockwell Studios here in Austin, Texas. I got my old friend Robbie Davis here, and I've got Garrett the tech guy. These guys are both with Delta Millworks, and we're talking wood. This is going to be a great webinar. We've got a fire hose of information, so we wanted to start right at 3 o'clock because I've got a solid hour for you guys, and we might actually go a minute or two over as well.
So a few mistakes. You know, most of our materials are installed properly. We have the documentation to educate people these days, and but inevitably something can go wrong. It's just the nature of our business. So with wood, there's structural issues. As you see here, this is a buckling of the boards. This was improper fasteners, and also we're seeing the siding butted up against the vertical trim that can trap moisture. I think they caulked it there. Ultimately, you want to see allow the wood to breathe a little bit at that point.
Yeah, I'm seeing that caulking right here where it's buckled. That's interesting. And when it comes to expansion and contraction, I know you're going to get into this in a second, but tight is not always right when it comes to wood, right? As a general rule.
Correct. We promote a rain screen, which means an air gap behind the wood, but you also want a gap below, at top, and on the sides. So anytime wood is meeting another building element, you really want to make sure there's an air gap there for breathability of the wood and water drainage.
Yeah, makes sense.
So a couple things we're seeing here. This is a mitered corner. Even with high-performing woods, this is an Akoya. Wood will inevitably move somewhat, whether that's 1 or 2% or 5%, wood will move. So mitered corners, we still see them a lot, but ultimately that seam is going to open up, and 1, 3, 5 years down the road, you're going to see a gap there. It's not going to look good, and it's not going to perform well.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
It's not worth it.
There's other alternatives these days for corner treatments.
No, on an exterior project with wood, don't miter it. It's just a really bad idea. Now, we will show you an option in a minute that I did on one of your projects where you can get kind of the look of mitered corners without the downside of it. But let's keep going here, Robbie.
This is some staining. This is Akoya, but other woods can react with either the fasteners or other building materials. And I believe this stain is the furring strip. Whatever they're nailing onto is reacting with Akoya. Akoya is a chemically modified wood, so you want to use the right materials.
And is that a green stain that I'm seeing on there?
I think that's from a non-stainless fastener.
Interesting.
Also from pressure treated lumber. And on the right here, we're seeing a galvanized steel furring strip.
Okay, on this guy.
Yeah, you definitely want to be using stainless there.
You know, when you're putting wood on the outside of the house, this is something we've done for many generations as American builders. It can be a very long-lasting, very beautiful product, but you got to get the details right. And I appreciate these guys for having the kahunas to come in and start out with a couple bad photos to set the tone, right? That you can't just put anything up on the house and expect it to last and work. You need to think about it. And especially when you're putting some of these beautiful woods on the house, to make them beautiful and look beautiful 5, 10, 30 years later, there needs to be thought and care into how you do that. And not just, hey guys, we got that, go ahead and do it, right? It's thought that goes into it. And with that being said, let's transition from the ugly photos to the how to do it right portion.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so let's talk about handling, ordering, delivery.
As Matt said, you can use the best quality wood siding on the planet, but it has to be installed and handled properly. That goes with the structural performance of the wood and also the coatings themselves. And another thing to consider is, you know, wood technologies have changed a lot in the last 10 years, especially 20 years. That's the type of wood, the fasteners, the rain screen systems, and the coatings. So stuff has changed. So, you know, educate yourself on the materials you're using and, you know, the details and best practices to make sure they last decades and not years.
Yeah.
Everyone wants a full length board across the entire length of their elevation, or vertically all the way up to the eave. Obviously we can make that happen if it's taken into account and calculated correctly. But understanding that you're not going to usually have a full length board across the entire elevation. And
That's right.
Accounting for that waste. So we've seen a lot of people run into issues where They've cut all of them at the full length that they need, and then they've got a whole bunch of 3-4 foot boards left over, and they didn't take that into account for their takeoff.
For the square footage takeoff.
Yes,
Which they
exactly.
counted tight on the square footage.
And so
that's a great point, Barrett. Think about your lengths and what you're trying to do. And honestly, that's a good expectations conversation you should be having with your architect or your client to say, hey, you're going to have butt joints on this, and don't expect full length boards in this location. So let's talk about this ahead of time. And maybe even that's a good thing to talk about when you do that mock-up for them.
During installation, you're going to be trimming the ends of the boards, and that's a standard procedure, not just to give it a clean 90 degrees, but to cut it to length. Sealing the ends is very important. We send out an in-cut sealer. This comes in all of our crates. We have an installation and in-cut sealer kit. It'll also have a touch-up kit in it. But sealing the ends is important. Once again, even on high-performance woods, wood will absorb moisture through the ends. So if it's raw, it'll absorb more moisture. Basically, this is done immediately after they trim the ends. We will send this preloaded with stain. The stain will be the same color as the siding.
That's awesome.
So you're not putting a clear coat or a black with a gray wood. This in-cut sealer for this product would be brown.
How cool.
So if there ever is an instance where you can see part of that in-cut, it'll be the same color as the siding.
That's
and it'll
awesome.
be sealed, simple, dab it on. The wood absorbs it right away, so basically you can install it right away. You don't really need to set the board aside and let it dry for a period of time.
Here we wanted to show a couple different conditions, obviously window, and as you're getting to the soffit here, an exterior soffit, and very similar to exterior siding, you also want your soffit to be vented properly. So here we actually ripped a core vent strip to allow for airflow through the soffit as well, and you would do the same exact thing on the outside of your soffit as well, ideally, to get it to flow through, and I believe you use this detail on your house. So for horizontal siding, pretty simple. We're running a 1x2 furring strip straight over our studs and nailing into each stud through the furring strip. And we'll get a little bit more into the details as it relates to tongue and groove and different profiles. But as far as horizontals go, that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. As far as verticals, let's grab another mock-up back here. The problem with vertical is you can't do the same assembly because you're going to have an impeded drainage plane from top to bottom, and your moisture is going to get trapped in between. So what we do and what we recommend is a counterbatten system. So you're going to use your vertical counterbattens. I don't know if you guys can see that here. A vertical counterbatten and a horizontal furring strip.
Armando Cabo has a great question. Are there, quote, better woods for the South? And what finishes are more reliable or more durable, let's say, for a southern climate? It's a good question, Armando.
The South is tough on wood. We have high UV exposure and also higher humidity. Depends on where you are. You want a good performing wood. Accoya would be my go-to just because it's kind of our gold standard for exterior woods. Has a 2%, this is a piece of Accoya right here, 2% expansion and contraction rate built into its warranty. Water exposure, whether that's direct water or humidity and ambient humidity in the air. You want a wood that can take, higher humid climates, and Accoya is the go-to. I mean, it has a 25-year ground contact or fresh water contact warranty. So when it comes to
That's legit. It's a long warranty.
extreme environments, whether it's the South or 9,000 feet elevation, or on the Pacific coast where you're getting salt and sand and sea spray, you want a high-performing wood such as Accoya.
Quickly go into more detail on the pressure-treated wood leaching issue. Just give us another minute or two on that, or maybe review that for us again, Barry. I think maybe I went too quick and he didn't quite catch that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for anyone who doesn't know, pressure-treated lumber is a ground contact rated piece of wood. Essentially, they're soaking the wood, whether it's a furring strip or a joist for a deck. They're soaking it in a chemically copper-based material, a liquid-based material. It's pretty toxic stuff. It's soaked into the wood. And it's obviously going to make that wood last a lot longer. But one of the issues with it is that now all of that moisture that's soaked into the wood, it could leach into other products on the exterior.